and welcome to the Consilium Aquis Sulis Introduction to Safety Management, part of our series on Introduction of New Technology. This course is intended for anyone interested in ensuring the safety of products and services. It consists of a single online video presentation, which can be viewed at will. Please note that the course is for educational purposes only. Please consult the standards and legislative requirements applicable to your specific industry and country for definitive information. There are no prerequisites for attending this course. This video will begin by outlining the process of defining system boundaries to answer the question, what are we talking about? It will then explain hazard identification and risk assessment before providing guidance on how to answer the question, how safe is safe enough? Finally, it will describe independent assessment and acceptance of products and service and how to ensure that they stay safe. Safety management begins by clearly defining the system being analyzed. This system definition will include identification of the boundaries of the system where it interacts with the outside world. A hazard is anything that has the potential to cause harm. In practice, a path to harm may involve multiple successive states, each of which could be considered a hazard. For clarity and consistency, hazard identification typically focuses on hazards at the system boundary, with precursor states regarded as causes. Risk assessment evaluates the potential harm that could result from a hazard, its consequences, and the likelihood of that harm occurring. Risk is the combination of likelihood and severity of harm and is often assigned a score based on both elements. Anything that reduces a risk is a mitigation of that risk. Risk may be reduced in the likelihood of harm, the severity of harm, or both. Mitigations can take many different forms. For example, removing or reducing the hazard itself, such as low road speed restrictions in residential areas. Preventing people coming into contact with the hazard, such as segregation of pedestrian walkways from high-speed roads. Procedures and competency for dealing with the hazard, such as traffic laws and driving licenses. Protective equipment to minimize harm when it does occur, such as seat belts, airbags, side impact beams, and crumple zones. Risk should be reassessed after mitigation measures. Risk is intrinsically linked to scale. A rare event on a short section of road may be commonplace in the context of a national highway network. Assessments of the likelihood of harm resulting from a particular hazard should therefore always be framed in the context of the application's scale. Frequent occurrence of high levels of harm is usually regarded as unacceptable and must be prevented at all costs. Rare occurrence of such events or frequent occurrence of low levels of harm may be regarded as tolerable, provided steps are taken to reduce risk. Some hazards are so trivial that risk could be regarded as broadly acceptable. Many legislations require tolerable risks to be reduced so far as is reasonably practicable, or to a level that is as low as reasonably practicable or as low as reasonably achievable. Financial metrics are often used to assess how much money it is reasonable to spend on a risk mitigation measure based on its expected risk reduction, value of preventing a fatality, equal value of life years gained, quality-adjusted life years. Other legislations Assess overall risk against a reference system or value. Globalement au moins aussi bon. Minimum endogenous mortality. Rather than conduct an explicit risk assessment for every hazard every time it is encountered, standards or other codes of practice may be used. Standards and code of practice can simplify the process of managing frequently occurring hazards. The risk assessment process is conducted during the development of the standard, once for all instances of the hazard. Mitigations identified become requirements of the standard. If the system is similar to another system, the risk assessment and mitigations for that other system may be applicable to the new system. Like standards and codes of practice, this can save substantial effort by avoiding a full repeat of the risk assessment process. The similar system may be known as a reference system. However, a system that has been in place for some time may not be compliant to current safety requirements and standards. Updating or replacing the system may be prohibitively expensive, not reasonably practicable. Such a system may be said to have grandfather rights, as it was compliant at the time it was instigated and allowed to remain as it is. An independent assessor may be called on to review the risk assessment process and mitigations identified. This can provide additional assurance that the process has been correctly followed and nothing has been missed. Following a risk assessment process and the independent assessment of that process typically form part of the safety case for accepting a system into use. Responsibilities for accepting a product or service into use depend on the specific application, industry, and country. Safety-critical industries often have regulators with responsibilities for acceptance into use. Insurers may also need to accept a system if they are underwriting claims in the event of an accident associated with it. Clients of a system may similarly want assurance of its safety for their conscience and reputation before allowing it to enter service. A system that was safe when it entered service does not necessarily remain safe. It may need to be maintained in a certain way, new or unanticipated hazards identified and mitigated. A strong safety culture in the organization using the system is essential for achieving this. Senior management commitment to health and safety, incentivization of safe working practices, encouragement of staff to share safety concerns without fear of reprisal, briefing of lessons from incidents or changes to safety standards, regular safety audits. Reporting of incidents that had the potential to cause harm, as well as those that do, is an important part of a strong safety culture. Important lessons can be learned from such incidents to avoid their repetition, with potentially less fortunate results. Creating an environment in which staff feel confident to report incidents without fear of reprisal is essential in order to learn from them. Safety management begins by clearly defining the system being analyzed. Hazards, anything that has the potential to cause harm, are then identified at the system boundary. Risk assessment evaluates the potential harm that could result from a hazard, its consequences, and the likelihood of that harm occurring. Anything that reduces a risk is a mitigation of that risk. Some risks are unacceptable and must be reduced at all costs. Others are broadly acceptable. In between are those that are tolerable, provided reasonable steps have been taken to reduce them.